part of the library, and I love the way everything is set up, and I love having a celebration of gifts of this nature, because it is really an important gift for Gettysburg College's library. And let me get to the chase here for our students and the learning that goes on at Gettysburg College, and for the researchers who will come on in the future. So thank you, Robin, for everything you've done to make this possible, or as Yogi Berra would say, for making it necessary. I'm really happy to be here at the formal opening of the Locke exhibition, which will be up, as Robin said, for pretty much the whole academic year. It's a magnificent gift, Locke family, and we are very grateful to you. The collection is in good hands. It will get good use. And indeed, I can be very confident of saying that because I teach American history from 1900 to 1945, among other things, and my students are going to get exposed to the Locke collection. And I'm not going to be the only person who will make use of it. My first awareness of the Jim Locke photographs, perhaps like some others in this audience, occurred in the year 2006. That's when they were displayed for several months in the theater gallery at the Majestic. And I walked through that gallery, and it was almost like what, Herman Melville referred to as the shock of recognition, because this was America in the 1930s. I was impressed as I walked through and saw most of these images at the Majestic that year. I was impressed by the sophistication of Locke's eye and the clarity of his vision. This was a non-professional photographer. This was a man who ran a farm, and man, he was up there with the people I teach, who were the FSA photographers in the 1930s. Those marvelous people who you've probably heard of, starting with Dorothea Lange and Walker Evans and John Bouchon and going down the list. I fell in love with a particular photo in the collection right off the bat, and it's actually happily hanging right now. It's the farmhands at supper. It's a stunning, candid image of what it was like at a farm meal, catching everyone in the middle of the action, including that young man with his mouth open, ready to say something that was of interest to him and perhaps to those who are listening to him. These are intimate, domestic scenes that you don't often get, and certainly not in this quality. And they connect us in the 21st century to this world, to a world that has largely been lost. We, of course, are surrounded by agriculture in Adams County, and we're grateful for what our farm community does, but it's a different kind of farming than the farming that Jim Locke and his peers were doing. I'm thinking particularly of the physical labor side of things. Think of some of the pictures of the haying, of the corn husking, and other farm work. I mean, it was much more hands-on in the 1930s than it is right now. What we get is kind of one of these images, I think it's on the end over there, it's almost like a chiaroscuro portrait of a farmer with a scythe and billowing clouds as the backdrop. And as I'm looking at this, and I don't want to be too fancy-dancy in saying it, but it reminded me of a painting by Jean-Baptiste Corot, the 19th century French artist, who loved to paint the people who did the sowing and the reaping on French farms. It's often said that photography is a window on the world, and that's true. But there are different kinds of photography. There's documentary photography on one hand, and there's what we could call modernist photography on the other. I'm not going to give a lecture on either, but I will just simply, to make it more tangible, suggest that Locke comes out of the documentary photography school that we associate with Alfred Stieglitz in the early 20th century. And then the New Deal era photographers that I have referred to are part of the Farm Security Administration project going hither and yon through the United States to capture America as it was. That's on one side. And then on the other side, you have photographers like Paul Strand and Edward Weston, who are much more modernist, interested in exploration of the human body and of landscapes in ways that are not so much documentary as evocative of art. Now, Jim Locke's photography, as I said, with his focus on farm landscapes and long shots of barns and farm equipment and people,
including some scenes right in kitchens and dining rooms, brings us to a particular time and a place. My guess is that anyone roaming Adams County today could find vistas that would have been familiar to Jim Lott, and could, with their photography, capture similar moments in time. Now, as a historian, I find Jim Lott's work, and I've only seen a very small fraction of it, so I'm excited to see more, in the context of Adams County, Lancaster County, York County, in the 1930s and the early 1940s. It's not the end of an era in farming exactly, but it's the beginning of the end of what I would call the focus on physical labor farming. We tend, as Americans, even here in Adams County, to take for granted the food that we eat, as though it miraculously emanates from the land to the wholesalers who organize it, and then to the supermarkets and convenience stores where we purchase it and fill the trunks of our cars on a weekly basis. But we need to dig a little deeper. Jim Lott's images of Adams County remind us to pay attention to this whole web of our lives. This is how farming works, these photos say. His photos evoke something we don't want to lose, which is the human face of farming, including details that are not necessarily going to be readily found in the historical record. Now, think, for example, of the portrait that I refer to as my favorite, which is the farmers at supper. What's on the walls? You pay attention to that. What have they got hanging there? That tells us something about people's priorities, about people's values, because what we put in our houses is meaningful to us and ultimately should be meaningful to a historian. Thanks to Jim Lott's work, by looking closely at the clothes the farmers wore, the implements of their trade, the material culture of their households, the baking and the knitting that they did, we can get closer to them and appreciate them better. My students then can dig deeper into other contemporary documents and to history books by scholars to contextualize the images that they're finding in Jim Lott's whole corpus. And they can appreciate better what it meant to be in the agricultural world in Adams County. Let me close by quoting from the historian James Guimond, who wrote a book that is very fine called American Photography and the American Dream. In this book, Guimond observes that the notion of photography as a mirror or a window is accurate enough as far as it goes, but he says, let's try another image. Photographs are also doors, he says, that enable us, if only briefly, to step out of our old ideas about ordinary life, ordinary experience, and experience them in a fresher, more vivid way. Now, he was thinking, when he wrote that line, about photography of child laborers in the early 20th century, particularly associated with the work of someone named Lewis Hine, or the dispossessed landowners in the Great Depression. But I think that Guimond's comment applies to the work of Jim Lott. Lott's photographs connect us to our community in past time, and they bring those of us who are living and breathing almost a century ago into 21st century context and consciousness. They foster a web of connectivity between past and present. And I'll simply say, it's a darn healthy web. Thanks.